Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our Trade Quarter Enhancement Program Workshop. My name is Hannah Walter, and I am the manager for the Trade Quarter Enhancement Program. Today, we're going to go over, well, actually, before I talk about that, let me have Kayla go over some of the instructions for participating in the workshop. Kayla?
Thanks, Hannah. Good afternoon, everyone. Our workshops normally take place in different locations around the state. However, containment measures surrounding COVID-19 have required us to adjust to webinar format. Please bear with us should we encounter any technical challenges. The workshop agenda is located under the Handouts tab and can be downloaded and saved during the webinar. It can also be found on the Commission's website. You can also find a copy of today's PowerPoint under the Handouts tab. For participants joining us through GoToWebinar, please find the webinar panel located on the right-hand side of your screen. There you will find the audio, question, and handouts tabs. Under the audio tab, you have the choice to listen in via the computer or telephone option. If you prefer computer audio, please select the appropriate box. If you prefer the phone call option, select the corresponding box and dial the phone number, access code, and audio PIN as directed by the automated system. Please note that if the audio PIN is not entered, you will remain in listen-only mode and will be unable to speak should you have a comment. As a reminder, each registered attendee is provided a unique link and phone number to access the webinar. These cannot be shared with other participants as they are registered to a specific attendee. We welcome comments and questions from attendees as a part of each topic at this workshop. There will also be an opportunity for comments and questions at the end of the presentation. There are two options for participants to provide comments. You may click on the hand icon to indicate you wish to make a comment. You will then be unmuted and called upon to make your comment. Please be sure to state your name and affiliation prior to voicing your remarks. Also, please use the raise hand feature as early into the topic as you can to give the system time to acknowledge you. You may also use the questions tab to submit a question or comment. Please type in the topic you are commenting on and your comment. Commission staff will read the comment on your behalf. You will not be able to be on camera while making comments. Thanks for your time and your feedback today. Back to you, Hannah.
Thank you, Kayla. So today we're going to cover three things. We're going to talk about public health, accessibility, and natural and working lands. And for the first one, and let me say one more thing. For all of these topics, I wanted to let you know that they're going to be in our guidelines under a new section that we're adding, and I believe it's titled Other Information Areas, something along those lines. We put it in a separate section because we felt like these were topics where we wanted to provide applicants with a little more instructions about how to provide the information. And so we're asking for information in this section, but these are not evaluated criteria. So these three things that we're talking about today are not part of the evaluation criteria for the program. It's just areas where we're asking applicants to provide information. So let's start with public health. Public health is something that we had talked with advocates about adding to our guidelines in the last cycle. And we've been very lucky to work with Dr. Appleyard and his team at UC San Diego on some public health research. So Senate Bill 1 funds different research topics, and this was one of the topics selected for funding. And so Dr. Appleyard and his team have been working on how to think about public health in the context of our SB1 programs. And so Dr. Appleyard is an associate professor in city and regional planning and public administration at San Diego State University. He's led several research efforts examining the relationship between the built environment, transportation, land use, and a variety of outcomes related to public health. We've really enjoyed working with him and his team, and I'm going to turn it over to him now to present the public health slides.
Thank you very much, Hannah. It's a real pleasure to be with you all today. So we could, is there a way for me to advance the slide? There we
You'll
go.
have to let Kayla, yeah.
Thank
there
you.
go.
I'll go to the next slide. This is already covered. So basically with public health, there are many aspects that can be described in both qualitative and quantitative forms. And the facets most easily connected to transportation planning include the categories of physical activity, mental health, traffic safety, environmental quality and pollution exposure, and accessibility to health promoting goods and services. Next slide, please. So we've basically broken it down to physical activity, and actually street connectivity is within physical activity, traffic safety, environmental quality and pollution exposure, and the public health benefits of transit. So with physical activity, we might ask questions like how walkable and bikeable is the area that you're currently working in? Does your project have components of complete streets components that improve the bicycling and walkability of an area? Does the project improve street connectivity? All these things we can look at for improving physical activity from a transportation project. In terms of traffic safety, we can ask questions related to the level of traffic stress. Will your project actually improve the level of traffic stress in an area? How many collisions are occurring in the area currently? Will your project actually promise to lower that number of collisions? And for environmental quality and pollution exposure, will your project actually improve air quality both locally and regionally and over the long term? Will it actually lower noise exposure? Will it actually do such things as transportation system management projects will, which could actually improve the performance of a corridor without having to build a new road project? And the public health benefits of transit, will the transit project increase walking and bicycling and use of transit as opposed to driving and substitute the driving trips? Or will it actually undermine transit? So we can think about that as well. And those are just the big questions and examples of projects that we're actually proposing to the CTC right now. And we're waiting for some feedback on our list of projects and our list of questions. Next slide, please. And we've also provided a list of tools that can be used to sort of help answer these questions, such as the Integrated Transport and Health Impact Model, or ITHM, the Transportation Disparities Mapping Tool, which is created by the Center of Neighborhood Knowledge. And it's actually a very helpful tool in providing information that can help with your applications. The Environmental Protection Agency's Smart Location Mapping Tool is another good project tool that can be used. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, their National Environmental Public Health Tracking Network Query Tool is also another good tool that could be used in your applications. Cal EnviroScreen it also provides a wealth of information that can be used. Caltrans Smart Mobility Calculator, which I helped develop for Caltrans, can also help provide information on obesity levels, cardiovascular disease, vehicle miles traveled, and also areas of lower greenhouse gas emissions, and what are the areas of high greenhouse gas emissions. And also the Induced Travel Calculator out of UC Davis is another good tool that could be used to sort of help gauge the effectiveness and the relationship of public health to other transportation projects. Next slide, please. We've also sort of a first draft list of measures and under which categories they can help address questions and be used in the application process, and a list of indicators and their sources that you can use for your application process. And it's a list that we expect to get, we're hoping we'll get more feedback on other measures that we can use and propose to be used throughout the process. And I think that's it for my slides. And I look forward to answering any questions you have.
Kayla, do we have any questions?
Hi, Anna. I'm not seeing any written comments or questions coming in, and no hands raised at the moment.
Okay. And I just want everyone to know that if they think of a question later or at the end of the workshop, feel free to ask it, and I can always reach out to Dr. Appleyard and work with him to follow up. Thank you, Dr. Appleyard. We really appreciate your work on this. And so we are, the programming staff and the planning staff are collaborating, reviewing the language. And so we will be back to you to continue working on it. I appreciate your presenting it here. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. It's great working with you all.
Okay, let's move to accessibility. So accessibility is one of those metrics where it was actually a performance metric in cycle 2. And when we were working on the performance metrics guidebook and the instructions for how to calculate the required performance metrics, we started taking a closer look at accessibility. And we talked about it a lot in the work group. And what we concluded was that we wanted to be a little more flexible in how we allowed people to measure accessibility benefits. And we wanted to make sure that they had different options for how they wanted to approach it, because we thought that just made more sense. So we ended up taking it out of the metrics as a performance metric and putting it into this section in the guidelines, and taking an approach that was more asking applicants to think about different ways that accessibility might be improved, and then offering them different tools that they could use to show that. So that's what we did, and I'll walk you through it. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, this is just a general statement that is in the guidelines at the beginning of this section. And it basically says that there's different kinds of, there's different ways accessibility can be improved, and it really depends on what you want to focus on. So for example, you could focus on the key destinations that people will have better access to. Maybe your project is going to improve access to hospitals, warehouses, which would help improve jobs, or other like grocery stores, things like that. You can focus on that. You can focus on the fact that people will get there faster. It will actually be quicker for them to get from A to B. You can focus on, does your project add a route or maybe change the routes? It doesn't make more, but it just makes them better, or better options. Or you can talk about improved connections or improved connections to transit, things like that. So those are some of the things that you could focus on. And that's what this language is really kind of trying to get across. So then it starts to, well, first it kind of has this statement about questions you might want to think about, and then it starts to ask you for information. So the questions it's saying that you should think about are, how will access be improved? What transportation options are located near the project? And where are the key destinations? So just some things to think about as you're beginning to try to describe accessibility. And then it goes into the information we want you to provide in the application. So at first, essentially, we just want you to make a summary statement that is saying how are you saying that this project improves access. We can go to the next slide. Okay, then after you say what the access improvement is or access benefits, we're asking you to provide specific examples that demonstrate how access is being improved. And we have some examples there for you, like, are you adding a new off-ramp, connecting a highway to a new warehouse, thereby allowing trucks to access the warehouse? We tried to make the trade corridor examples specific to freight, but you'll see this same kind of language in the other programs, but it will be a little more tailored to those programs. Oh yeah, and one comment I meant to make at the beginning about accessibility is that when we worked through this language, we wanted to try to make the accessibility language for TSIP more focused on goods and the ability of goods to get from A to B. The accessibility language for solutions for congested corridors and local partnership will be more person focused, but this one is more goods movement focused. Okay, so we asked you for specific examples, and then we say that you can include a map showing relevant areas that help demonstrate access improvements and any relevant data or statistics that support your claim. So those are the things that we're asking for for accessibility. I think that's actually it. Let's take a look at the tools. So that's all the information we're asking for. It's really only 4 things. And then we go to different tools that you may want to use to try to show your access improvements. So one is On the Map. This is a free online mapping tool, and basically it just allows you to select, kind of like GIS or a lot of those online mapping tools, if you're familiar with them. You pull up this map and it's very, from a high level at the beginning, you can focus down in, and usually it will allow you to go on the map and like draw a line or select an area that you want to focus on. And then it will provide some analysis of that area, and that's what this tool does. So it has some interesting options, like it has jobs and it has destinations in the area. It looks at that kind of information. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, then there's the Transit Center Equity Dashboard. And when we were looking at tools, this one was actually a really good one. This has a lot, I know it's kind of equity focused, but actually, you know, accessibility, there's some overlap between accessibility and equity, because a lot of times when people are thinking about equity, they're also thinking about improving accessibility for certain groups of people or you know, communities. So this is a equity focused tool, but it actually has some good accessibility information. The only drawback is that it's only for LA and San Francisco in California. But it's a really useful tool if your project is in one of those locations. And then another option is just GIS mapping, and you have to have a license for that, but we included it with some instructions in case you do. That may be it for the accessibility tools. Yeah, I think there might be a couple more for SCCP and LPP, but those are really more specific to improving accessibility for people, so I didn't include them on this list. And so that covers the accessibility language. I'm happy to answer any questions people may have.
Hi, Hannah. No written comments or questions right now, and I'm not seeing any raised hands.
Okay. Quiet group today. That's fine. But don't feel bad if you have a question. Okay. This is the last one for today. So this is a new area to me, I'll be honest. I'm still learning about this, but we've been working with, you know, other state agencies like Caltrans and the Air Resources Board on some of these areas. And so I'm just going to go through what the language is, and we'll take it from there. Okay, so really, what this is trying to look at is whether the project has strategies that will help kind of conserve and manage green spaces like forests or wetlands and things like that. So that's what this is really getting at. Is your project going to help kind of preserve or protect those spaces? So some of the questions are, does the project protect natural and working lands? There's a lot of words here, and I might actually go through this language again, because right now this is the language that is drafted for the guidelines. I think I may actually go through this one more time and try to make it even more simple we're still working with CARB and Caltrans to finalize this language. So it's almost final, but not final. And I might try to make it even more simple so that it's very clear what we're asking for. But essentially, the questions that we want applicants to think about are, does the project protect natural and working lands? Does the project support local and regional conservation planning? So that could mean like, oh, and let's go to the next slide because this one is really more, okay. The first one was, that language is really more talking about just examples of natural and working lands. And then the two questions I just said are what's up here under employ land conservation measures. So those are just examples of what they mean by protect natural and working lands. I tried to go through here and reword the questions that I was reading in this language in a really simple way. So essentially, it means, let me reread those. So essentially it means, does it protect natural and working lands, and does it support local and regional conservation planning? And then for examples, and this is what you see here on the slide, for examples of supporting local and regional conservation planning, that could mean focusing on development where it already exists, or aligning with conservation priorities to reduce impact on the natural environment. So that's what they mean by supporting local and regional conservation planning. And then the other thing, the last kind of section of language under natural or green infrastructure solutions is asking applicants to think about whether their project integrates anything into the design of the actual project itself that is kind of like natural or green infrastructure. So does the project plant trees? Does it have some significant landscaping that is adding a lot of like green space to the project? Things like that. So if your project is doing anything like that, that would be an example of natural or green infrastructure solutions. All that to say, it's still taking me time to get used to this language, but essentially what we're trying to get at is how are you encouraging, plants and trees and grass, and thinking about what planning your city or the area that your project is in has already done. Like, is there a preserve nearby or something like that? How are you working to try to preserve those natural areas as much as you can? And how are you working to, when you design your project, to try to design it with some green spaces, as they call it, in mind? So that's really what it's trying to get at. And that is the end of that section. So that will also be a section in the guidelines. Are there any questions on that?
Hi, Hannah. Not seeing any written questions or comments. We do have one raised hand. Let's see, I'll go ahead and unmute them. Akiko, it looks like, oops, I'm sorry. It looks like you're self-muted, Akiko, so if you can unmute, you should be able to speak.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you, Akiko.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you. So I was just trying to digest the information that was provided today. For the public health and accessibility, is CTC proposing that in this cycle of TSAP, you want each application to have more expanded discussion on the public health impacts and accessibility improvements using the methodologies that are proposed here?
Yes, that's right. And
Okay.
there's actually a statement at the beginning of, that we put in at the beginning of this kind of spot in the guidelines where we have this language that says, you know, we're asking you for information in these different areas, but if your project, if one of these areas really doesn't apply to your project, then you can just state that and you don't have to fill that one out. So we're still allowing applicants the ability not to provide this information if they don't feel like it's relevant for their project.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for that clarification. And I want to say, like, especially with the public health section, I appreciate this resource of tools that we can use if we were to add the discussion in the application. So thank you.
Yes, yeah, and I'll pass that along to Dr. Appleyard. Yeah, they were helpful in really thinking through how to help applicants measure that in some way. So we really appreciate their work.
Yeah, no, okay, thank you.
Are there any more questions or comments, Kayla?
Hi, Hannah. Not seeing any written comments or questions and no hands raised. We did receive a question earlier that is a little bit off topic and are you okay with a general question right now?
I am, but hold that thought for 1 minute. I'll come
Okay.
back and ask it. I'll ask you to tell me it. But
Okay.
there was 2 things I wanted to say while most people are still on the call. The first is that we will be canceling the December Trade Corridor Workshop. And instead, we're going to be holding some kind of like meeting about equity. That's really all I know. Matthew Yazgat is leading that effort. So, but just so you know, there will be an equity meeting replacing the December workshop. And it's in place of Trade Corridor Solutions and local partnerships. So I'm not sure what specific day it will be on, but I'm sure we'll be following up with everyone about that. That was the first thing I wanted to say. And the second is that we are working now on scheduling workshops for the January through April timeframe. And I plan on talking about the performance metrics guidebook in January. So right now my plan is to talk about the performance metrics guidebook in the January workshop and the target methodology in the February workshop. That's my plan. So just wanted to share that with you all. Okay, we can go back to the question.
Thanks, Hannah. It was from Carrie Cartwright, but it looks like Carrie does have his hand raised. So we'll go ahead and unmute you, Carrie, so that you can ask your question.
I've got a couple of general questions, actually. One being, can you update us on your latest disposition on the CEQA and NEPA documentation? I thought there were some still unresolved issues, or CTC hadn't come up with their final disposition on it, and that's one. Secondly, given the passage of the federal IIJ, and I believe there's more NHFP funds starting this fiscal year, and because there's an overlap of the 2020 TCEP program and the new one coming up, I presume you and Caltrans will be assessing the additional funds beyond what was assumed in your programming for 2020. What you'll do with those funds, knowing that obviously if you defer them to the next program, they'll be 2 years behind in getting those out, which may send the wrong message to the Biden administration, given the significance on freight and the supply chain efforts. We're engaged daily with the White House on this. And then secondly, I don't recall if there was even a statutory time frame for obligation of those funds. I can't recall those federal funds, NHFP funds. But anyway, just some things, I guess, if you guys could provide some feedback on over time.
Right. Okay, sure. So here's the status of where we're at with CEQA NEPA. We've had several internal discussions with Matthew, myself, and Tanisha Taylor, and also Mitch Weiss. and we haven't come to a final decision yet. We still need to meet with Caltrans on that. And also, we did also hear from the Port of Oakland yesterday. They asked for the same things that you have asked for and that others have asked for in terms of allowing more leeway for CEQA-NEPA. So we're going to have another internal meeting and also a meeting with Caltrans. And then once we do that, we're planning to come back to this group to talk about it again sometime after the new year. So I'm actually kind of waiting to see how the timing of that plays out before I put it in one of the workshops, but it will be in one of the workshops between January and April. So that's that one. For the new federal funds, I'm going to get an updated fund estimate from budgets. That's my plan. I actually still need to reach out to Keith about that. But I did see that bill and that it increased the federal funding. And I need to work with Paul, who's our ledge coordinator, to see, I still need to work out the timeframes for the, how the timeframes are going to impact our program. Actually, that's not really Paul, that's actually the Caltrans budget office because they manage the cash flow. And I'll figure that out at the same time that I get the fund estimate from them. So I still need to work with them to get those details. But I know that as soon as we want to try to, as soon as we can, we want to try to use that federal funding.
So that may obviously change your anticipated schedule, right, of the next TSIP program?
Yeah, I mean, it could. The other thing, and I actually had it on my list, but I didn't say it, is that we also want to talk about the TSIP schedule in those workshops. So we will talk about that. Yeah, I just don't know yet what.
Right.
I don't really know all the way that bill is going to play out in terms of impacting our funding and the timeframes. So I still have to work. I still have to figure that out.
Yeah, just as an FYI, the administration has already announced accelerated schedules for the MARAD port program, obviously not totally separate from TSAP, to demonstrate immediate action and project applications and the whole competitive process. So it's probably something that I would think CTA, CalSTA would probably be considering as well to demonstrate, because they're obviously involved in these activities with the White House, of implementing these as much as possible, and whether or not you guys have the ability to do that or not.
Yeah. We're working with CalSTA and GoBiz to provide an update on EON 1921 at the December commission meeting. And as part of that, CalSTA was going to talk about their collaboration with the federal government. So we will be getting an update on that effort from them. And we also are working on just that effort is kind of overlapping some of the things we were trying to do for freight data in general that came out of some of our discussions from it wasn't just congestion at ports, but goods movement congestion and the conversations and the summit that was happening back in September. So we are actually working with GoBiz and CalSTA on all that right now. So we will coordinate with them. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Does that answer your questions or?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Hannah, this is Les. We received another raised hand.
Sure.
Angel Pyle.
Oh, hi, Angel.
Hey, Hannah. So actually, I thought I had lowered my hand because you addressed exactly what I was going to say, is that the department is working on a revised fund estimate. So we'll be in touch with that, but just wanted to support you in that. And then also appreciate Carrie's continued interest on the environmental front as we are also interested in that, and we'll of course be supplying some additional information to that effect too, and just want to support all of us working together in support of this program. So and then we're here for anything that you need as well, and look forward to talking about it further. So
Okay,
thank you.
great. Thanks, Angel.
Hey, I got a suggestion, Hannah and Angel. What you can do is the surplus over what you guys estimated, the fund estimate, just allocate those back to the current 2020 projects to demonstrate immediate reaction and advancement of the supply chain issues.
Well, that's a thought. That's one good idea. We'll keep it in mind.
I mean, actually, that's not far afield from what the Federal Administration, USDT, said yesterday, actually, the White House, is that they're now allowing project savings to be used for project scope expansion and other projects that contribute to the supply chain that were not even submitted in application. So you guys may want to consider that on savings as well.
Okay. All right, I'm writing this down as an idea. Okay, thank you. Are there any other
Harry
questions?
he has his hand raised again.
Oh, no, I thought I lowered, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Carrie.
No problem. I believe that concludes our raised hands.
Okay, great. Now, I know it was a short workshop today, so I just want to ask one more time, are there any other comments or questions?
Hi, Hannah, it's Kayla. I'm not seeing any more hands raised. Oh, we do have a couple hands raised. Before I go back to Celeste, just really quick, we did get a question about seeing the presentation slides today, and they are on our website, or you can download them right now from the handouts tab. If you just go to that drop down, you should be able to access the PowerPoint. It's one of the 2 PDFs that are listed in there, just so attendees know that it is there. So let's go ahead and if you want to do the hands raised now.
All right, thank you. First up is Joseph Sullivan.
Oh, thank you, Hannah. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Joe Sullivan. I work for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local 11, and the National Electrical Contractors Association of Greater Los Angeles. And I want to introduce a different concept of potentially encouraging the consideration of using Trade Corridor Enhancement Program funding to create high road careers, to add workforce standards. There's precedent for using public funds to do this. The IOU, CPUC, CEC, CARB, South Coast AQMD all have workforce standards around charging infrastructure. And we're seeing that green jobs are often inferior to jobs that they've replaced. And last year, there was a report called Putting California on the High Road Jobs and Climate Action Plan. It was authored by UC Berkeley Center for Labor and Education. But the action plan was commissioned by the Workforce Development Board at the direction of the legislature, and the governor's office co-wrote the foreword to it. So this is all just to say that it came from the highest levels of government and experts, really in the state. But it serves as a thorough guidebook for policies agencies can consider deploying or employing to use public investment in green infrastructure to create these high road careers and raise communities that have been adversely impacted by the environment. Please don't hesitate to contact me with any questions, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Actually, can I ask you a question? So let me make sure I understand what you're saying. So what you're saying is use trade corridor funding for to write standards or to train people, or is it one of those two?
Yeah, so like if someone were to receive grant funds, that they potentially might have to have some workforce standards. Like maybe people have had a certain percentage of people working on a project, like electricians, which is my field, would have to have graduated a state-approved apprenticeship program to make sure you're actually getting people through apprenticeship programs and really creating real careers. Or maybe they could need to come from, certain zip codes that have been environmentally impacted, or local hire, or it can be around, additional training around, say, EV infrastructure. There's different tools or modalities, but it's the idea of having certain requirements within grants.
Okay, so at least one of the things you're saying isn't necessarily that we would fund something specifically, but that we would take a look at our requirements and see if, and make sure that there were certain standards that we were requiring. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. I could probably use some language that's been, used before.
Sure, yeah, that would be great. Do you mean email me? That would be good. Yeah.
Yeah. I
Okay.
can check your email.
Sure.
All
Can
right.
you put my email in the chat, Kayla?
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, thanks. Okay, well, thank you. I'll have to think about that.
All right. Our next raised hand is Mariella Raucho.
Hi, Hannah. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for hosting this workshop. I had a question on the public health aspect. Obviously, the transportation is the leading cause of harmful air pollution in California. The CAPDI was clear in terms of the public health and equity should be prioritized within transportation funding decisions. We look forward to detailed proposals, a little bit more information on the proposals. And I wanted to ask, is a draft out? What is the timeline for that? In addition, has the California Department of Public Health or OIHA or other agencies provided comments on the public health and equity aspect of the guidelines? And then just overall, we want to see the guidelines targeting investments in health promoting infrastructure, including mass transit, electric vehicle charging for medium heavy duty vehicles, and et cetera.
Okay, let me think through what you just said and try to kind of respond to your questions one at a time, and then let me know if I missed anything. So for the guidelines, what you saw for public health was an overview of the language itself. It wasn't verbatim because we're still working on it. It's a little bit less done than some of the other language I shared, like accessibility, where that was pretty much verbatim what is going in the trade border guidelines. But we will have a draft of the guidelines released to everyone that has all of the actual words as we get closer to farther along in the process. I would say though that for the most part, pretty much everything that I've run through in these workshops are the major changes in the guidelines. So what we're running through is either verbatim what's going to be in there or very close. And the things that we are talking about in these workshops are the major changes. If we're not talking about them in the workshop, it's probably not a major change. So I guess what I'm saying is that what you're seeing in the workshops is a pretty good overview of what you will see in the guidelines, but we will have the guidelines released to everyone to look at some point when we're further along in the process a little bit. So that's no problem. And in terms of review, we are working with a lot of people on the review of all of these sections. For public health, like I said, we're not as far along in finalizing it, but the people that we have been working with are the Air Resources Board, Caltrans, CalSTA, and I actually have not had public health review the language, but we can think about that. The people who asked us to include this language in the last cycle, like public health specific language, were some advocacy organizations and CARB, the Air Resources Board. So the people that have, some of the people that have asked for the language have also reviewed it. But what was the other thing you said? Now I can't remember. Oh, the projects. So I think how much it is, to a certain extent, I just wanted to point out, to a certain extent, the kinds of things that the kinds of projects you're going to see depends on the program. Like the trade corridor program is a freight program, so it's all about freight infrastructure. It doesn't fund like cars or anything like that. It just funds infrastructure for freight. So you'll see projects that are trying to improve goods movement. For local partnership and solutions, the guidelines are requiring a little bit different. The focus of those programs is a little different. So it kind of depends on what program it is, the kind of projects you see.
Does that freight infrastructure include electric charging for those medium and heavy duty vehicles?
Yes, it does. Actually, yes. And we added language in specifically in response to cacti for that as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Kayla, are there any other questions or hands?
Hi, Hannah. I'm not seeing any written questions or comments coming through, and it doesn't look like there are any more hands raised.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate everyone's time. Thank you for joining us today, and that concludes our meeting. I'm going to stay on the line just for a couple minutes to make sure we capture all of our questions. Oh, Matthew. Hi, Matthew.
Hey,
How long
Hannah.
have you been on there?
Oh, no, I literally just popped up. You made one
Okay.
comment earlier in the presentation that I want to expand upon. I know Christine talked about this in the local partnership program workshop on Monday. But as Hannah mentioned, we are canceling the LPP Trade Corridor Enhancement Program and Solutions for Congested Corridors program workshops in December in lieu of all SB1 program equity focused workshop, which we're tentatively planning for December 16th from 1 to 4 p.m. And as Hannah mentioned, we are going to be sending out a save the date. I'm aiming to get that out next week. And if you do have any concerns at that point or questions at that point, just understand that my team, so that's the SB1 programs and program managers, are working in close collaboration with Laura Pennybaker and our planning team here at the commission, as well as key stakeholders to kind of prepare in advance of that workshop. So just wanted to elaborate that we're not canceling any specific discussions for the program workshops in December. We wanted to take the opportunity to focus on the important concept of integrating, better integrating equity within our programs, and we will resume normal guidelines discussions for each program in January. So just, I appreciate you calling it out, Hannah.
Yeah, thanks for adding that detail. So December 16th is the day. Okay.
I'm verbally offering that to the group. I know we have a lot of attendees listening in right now, but you do look for a save the date to be issued out through the CTC distribution list next week.
Thanks, Matthew. All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us. Have a good rest of your day. Take care. Kayla, I'm gonna hang out just for a couple minutes.
Sounds good. I'm not seeing anything come through yet, but I'll let you know if I do.
Okay.
Hannah, it's Kayla. We received one written question from Melissa White. They asked, when will you cover the implementation of SB 671?
Oh, is Melissa still on the call?
Melissa, if you want to raise your hand, we can unmute you.
Oh, there, here's Melissa.
So I think that I said
There we
something.
go.
Oh, there you are, Melissa.
Sorry.
Yeah. 671. I feel like I said something about that in the last workshop, but it was probably pretty high level.
Yeah, and you'd actually said in the last workshop that you thought this workshop that you'd really dive into it. So I was just wanting to make sure I didn't miss it.
Okay. You know, what happened was that we decided that these workshops might not be the best platform for that.
Hey, Hannah, this is Matthew. Correct me if I'm wrong, aren't you bringing an update on 671 to the December commission meeting?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Oh, great. Okay.
And so that would be good. Yeah, that would be good. And then actually, if you want more information on that, you can also just email me and I can send you, you know, you can participate in the workshops if you like. I can send you that meeting series. And just to kind of let you know, like, a little bit where we're at. What we're doing right now is just trying to think about the best way to select the freight corridors, because that's kind of like step one in the bill. And we're getting a lot of the energy people involved. So I'm still gathering all the right people to, you know, come to the table. And we want to just look at, you know, hydrogen and electricity and make sure that energy companies are involved and fleets are involved. And we're just trying to get everyone's perspective. So that's part of what I'm working on right now. And then we're going to start having monthly workshops in December. The first one is on December 10th, and we'll start talking about just the different corridors initially, and then we'll move from there to talking about the projects and some of the related infrastructure changes that we might want to recommend and stuff and that stuff. So that's kind of where we're at with it in general.
Yeah, if it's possible, you know, my office, I'm not sure if anyone else from my boss's office may already be involved, but we certainly would love to be involved.
Okay, that would be great. Do you have my email? Is it still in the chat?
Yes.
Okay, just reach out to me and I'll add you to my list and I'll forward you the invites.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah,
thank
no
you
problem.
for hosting these too. These are wonderful.
Great, that's good. I'm glad that they're being helpful. And yeah, so thanks for following up on that. I might mention something about it just so people know where they can go to get more information in the next workshop too. I didn't realize that I had said that I would talk about it more in this workshop in the last one. So that's good to know.
Thank you. Have a great afternoon.
You too. Bye.
Hi, Hannah, it's Kayla. Not seeing any more questions or comments come through, and no more raised hands right now.
Okay, thank you.
Hannah, I will just say we are down to only a handful of attendees. So I think we're good to go.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Okay, thank you. Let's end it, Kayla.
Okay, got it.
Thanks everyone.